So earlier this year, we read Aristotle's Politics, a student of Plato, and he says that the civilization, being in politics, being in a city, is the only way that we can achieve full self-sufficiency, to achieve the good life. And I would be curious throughout antiquity how democracy has historically been known as a very subpar. Socrates famously was a huge critic of democracy. What do you think Plato or Dion would think of the American Republic and our implementation of democracy in government?
Yeah. Well, one should be honest. Um, so the American Republic was, of course, founded with a similar bias against democracy, that they got from the ancients, from not just Plato and Aristotle, but from Polybius and Cicero. And democracy meant mob rule to them. Now, when Plato and Dion are operating, there's an Athenian democracy that was the golden age of Athens in the 5th century BC, which is the Athens that joined forces with Sparta and defeated the Persians, and then after that built a great empire in the Aegean. And Plato actually thinks that was a really high point for Athens. Now, they had a moderate democratic constitution, and by Plato's day, it got more and more democratic. Like the power of the assembly increased, the power of demagogues became higher and higher. And part of that was you sort of had a gradual dissolution of the great kind of noble families that kept the democracy in check from the perspective of a guy like Plato. And Plato actually saw Athens as a model for Syracuse because he says, in his opinion, Athens's empire was not about compulsion and force. I mean, there was an aspect of that, but Athens had a stable empire in the Golden Age days, before the Peloponnesian War, I think, especially, where a lot of cities really looked to Athens, and a lot of leading people in those cities wanted to be like the Athenians. And it was because they had, as Thucydides says, this power of being the school of Hellas. The cultural supremacy of Athens was soft power, and it was about friend making. From Plato's view, he's talking about the tragedies, he's talking about all the intellectuals that come through there, the freedom of thought you have in Athens, and you don't get that in Sparta. You don't get that in this like tightly regulated oligarchy that's only optimized for military supremacy, which is Aristotle's criticism of Sparta, right? There's more kinds of excellence than just military excellence. So I think that probably what Plato and Dion would say about America today is we've done a great job in our recent past, and I think we're kind of at risk of losing grip of it, of projecting a kind of set of cultural values that people really want to be a part of, that we've been good at making friends around the world through our music and literary culture, Hollywood. Maybe people would say that that's getting more and more demotic and cheapened, but it was real, right? This is a big part of our supremacy in the Cold War, but they would also say, I think, that while the American Republic had this strong democratic element, there was also this more balanced, let's call it aristocratic, a nice word for oligarchic element, where you had a class of elites that had a sense of noblesse oblige, that tended to see statesmanship as the highest calling and the highest source of honor. And we've lost a lot of that tradition of public service as being very honorable. Like, entrepreneurs are just widely regarded as way cooler than politicians now, which is maybe a good thing, but we've lost something in that sense of, and this is something that Alex Karp talks about, right, in his book, that the tech world has kind of devolved into commercialism. This would be a slide from Aristotle, from Plato's perspective, into a kind of plutocracy, which is bad, which is one step away from mob rule. And he might diagnose us as kind of teetering on the edge of mob rule, and too much mob rule tends to lead to totalitarianism, tyranny, demagogues ruling the place. So the short answer is it's complicated.